History of a Teacher by Famous Fault. Chapter 20. The Streets of London. The following morning, Yugi and Rebecca didn't join the others for breakfast. Instead, they did a small effort to eat something in Yugi's room, but neither of the two was hungry. The day after, everyone who wanted to leave was allowed to leave, and Yugi had considered waiting for that, but he simply didn't want to do that to Rebecca. As they were both staring at their food in silence, Yugi thought deeply. His thoughts pretty much the way they tended to be when someone had lost someone they cared about. The meaning of life, the meaning of death. Why did it hurt so much? Natural thoughts that calmed the Tem, who was passively listening to them. Not at all the way Yugi's thoughts had been after the massacre in the tomb. Rebecca, you should go and pack your stuff. I'm going to talk to Dumbledore. That is, if you want to leave today, instead of with the other students tomorrow, Yugi added gently. I want to leave this place as soon as possible, using as little magic as possible. I don't want to be reminded of this world for a while, she said, sounding bitter, and Yugi knew she felt guilty for not having been home when her grandfather died. I'll let Dumbledore know, Yugi said. Will you be alright? Yeah, I'm sure. I probably should talk to Peter anyway. He'll wonder what's going on. The entire school probably does, and they can have an explanation. It's completely natural for an elderly man to die. Right? Rebecca said and clenched her fists in silent fury. Yugi, may I? Atem asked, and Yugi withdrew without hesitating. Atem, Rebecca said, acknowledging the spirit's now embodied presence. Rebecca, Atem said silently, and waited for the blonde to say anything else. When she didn't, he continued. I'm dead. You know that. We can't say that my passing was entirely natural, but I can tell you this. The realm of the dead is a good place. At least for people like Arthur it is. There is a certain peace. I felt it, and in that moment I didn't want anything else but to enter that place. I was denied access by a Death Eater, but your grandfather walked straight into it. Your grandma and Yugi's grandpa and all your grandfather's friends were there waiting for him. I could tell since I've seen the people from my past waiting for me. The only ones suffering are we, Rebecca. I'm not telling you not to grieve the dead. Do so. But you must realize that this is the natural cause of things, and eventually we must accept it. Rebecca looked up into Atem's red eyes and nodded. Yes, you're right. Atem smiled and gave the girl a hug. Now let's do what has to be done, Atem said, and the two parted, Rebecca on her way to the Ravenclaw dorms, and Yugi, who was back in control, on his way to Dumbledore's office. He knocked on the door gently and immediately received a "Come in" as reply. Yugi opened the door and walked into the office, neither challenging nor hesitatingly, as he tended to, but quite neutral. Dumbledore was staring out one of the windows over the snow-covered grounds. I suppose you'd like to go home now, Dumbledore said. I think I can also assume that the two of you want to travel in a Muggle way as much as possible. Indeed, Yugi said and cocked his head, fighting back the need to yawn. He'd slept poorly. How are you feeling? Dumbledore asked, genuinely concerned, something that surprised Yugi. I'm doing quite all right, Yugi said. I haven't seen Professor Hawkins for quite a while, and I didn't know him all too well. Surely it came as a shock. He was my grandfather's best friend, but I'll keep it together. Rebecca seems to have more trouble with it all. She feels guilty. I see. Professor Flitwick will accompany you to Hogsmeade, and from there he'll apparate you to London. From there you'll have to find your way on your own, Dumbledore explained and took some steps away from the window to face Yugi. This might sound insensitive, but I have to ask, does the spirit of the puzzle have anything to do with what happened? An expression balancing between anger, surprise, and fear appeared on Yugi's face, but Atem shook his head viciously. No, that can't be! Using all the skills he had learned in the 4 years in wrong company, Yugi gathered himself and said as coolly as he could manage. I really hope not. I won't deny it isn't a possibility, but I seriously doubt it. All our enemies, with only a few exceptions, are gone, and those that remain are more your enemies than mine. I'll let you know once we return. Dumbledore nodded, knowing that he wouldn't receive a better answer than that, and told Yugi where to find Professor Flitwick, and offered him his condolences, which Yugi accepted with a nod. An hour later, Yugi and Rebecca walked in silence over the crowded streets of Muggle London. Together they headed towards the airport, without even having booked a flight, but Yugi had forgotten one thing. In the Muggle world, he still was some sort of celebrity, and an easily recognized one. Neither he nor Rebecca noticed that people were pointing and whispering about them until he suddenly walked into a wall of people. Mostly consisting out of teenagers, but also of people in Yugi's own age and older, and Yugi realized why they were there when he noticed that some individuals actually carried duel discs around their arms. None of them looked very happy. Yugi? Rebecca said and poked him in the side when Yugi nearly walked into the wall of people because his mind was elsewhere. I think we have been recognized. Yugi backed up a couple steps, but the crowd moving around the wall of people created a solid wall themselves, and Yugi and Rebecca were trapped. Do you know how many rumors have made their rounds about you? A man a little older than Yugi asked, and to Yugi's surprise, Rebecca went red. I haven't heard any of them. I wasn't interested, Yugi said coolly, catching the wall of people by surprise with his fluent English. Nor am I now. Can I pass? You're a legend that suddenly disappeared, and all we receive is, can I pass? A kid said, not angry but hurt. He was one of the youngest in the assembly, 10 or so, and his parents were standing right behind him, not feeling comfortable. It was obvious that they did not belong in the crowd. The kid is right, a teen with a red hoodie said, and people weren't nice towards you about it. The king of games suddenly disappeared from the face of the earth after a tomb collapses in Egypt. No one really knows why. There are duelists that think that you are selfish for not giving up your title when you have stopped dueling. Someone else should be allowed to take it. Is that your opinion? Yugi asked sharply, once again surprising the assembly. Everyone in the dueling world knew that Yugimoto was as shy and gentle as a kitten, but as dangerous as a lion when dueling. The kind of tone he used towards them now went as well together with everything they knew about Yugi as Jim Carrey with a silent film. The teen nodded. Yes, it is. Yugi smiled then. You're right. Someone who has stopped dueling should give up everything they have fought for, just like that. The sarcasm weighed heavily. However, that's not the point. How would you decide who would become the new king of games? What gives someone the right to that title? The teen looked slightly taken aback and didn't say anything, so someone else answered. Being the best, of course. Yugi chuckled. Is that so? Have any of you ever heard of Bandit Keith? The major part of the assembly nodded, and someone said, he was the American guy that was champion in America until Pegasus beat him and he became a drunk. He then started cheating his way through Duelist Kingdom and did an attempt to murder Pegasus, but was killed himself trying to do so. The mother of the 10-year-old put her hands over her son's ears and looked around shocked. Everyone ignored her, including her husband and son, who pushed her hands away. Yugi nodded and kept smiling. Yes, indeed. He was the best. But did he deserve to be called the King of Games? No, people murmured, and some just shook their heads. Well then, what kind of person does deserve to be the King of Games? Yugi asked curiously. He can't be an everyday amateur, someone Yugi couldn't see yelled. Or she, a female voice said. But I agree, you must be able to play it. You must know the game. Sounds reasonable, Yugi said, but even that is subjective. When do you know the game? When you know the rules? Or is there more to knowing the game? What more to it can there be? The same female voice said, and a figure fought its way through the crowd. She had a long leather jacket and her blue hair in a ponytail. Yugi chuckled lowly again, but it was Rebecca who answered. This game was created 5,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. Priests with magical powers captured people's ka in stone tablets. Kas were beasts, monsters, or spirits living deep within people's souls. They used these beasts to duel each other. Pegasus revived the game after he found carvings of it in an underground tomb. Already 5,000 years before even the Egyptians. It is said that the people of Atlantis were aware of the beasts in our souls, and when in need, they asked for help from the Kas of the dead, who lived in a separate dimension. Who of you dares to say you know the game now? That effectively silenced the crowd, who up until then had protested and said that they did know the game. That can't be true. Atlantis didn't exist, someone said eventually. Who cares? Rebecca retorted. It's still part of this game. Just that it isn't real doesn't mean that it can't have consequences. These 2 bits of history or simple fantasy were what inspired Pegasus to the creation of the game, and thus a part of the game itself. If you can't feel the life in it, you aren't worthy of receiving the title King of Games. She took some steps forward until she nearly melted into the wall of people. Now, she said, her voice low and dangerous, let us pass. We have a funeral to attend. What?
a girl with a gray cardigan said. That's terrible. It's almost Christmas. Death doesn't care about Christmas, Rebecca said, and almost smiled. Now move. Who? The same girl asked, seemingly oblivious to Rebecca's repeated request to move. My grandfather! Move! When no one did, Rebecca roughly pushed them aside and they let her pass. Yugi had to run after Rebecca, whose legs were much longer than his. Does this mean you're back? The little boy yelled after Yugi, and in that moment, Yugi knew how the hero in a movie felt when someone desperately pleaded for the anonymous hero's help. But Yugi wasn't an anonymous hero, and his help was needed elsewhere. Slowly, Yugi turned around, walked back towards the crowd, and knelt down before the little boy. No, my help is needed elsewhere. My days as a duelist are over. They were the best few years of my life, and then the tomb collapsed, and all my friends disappeared. I was really mad then. Now I am sad, and every time I pick up my deck, I think about them and cry. You have to treasure your friends. If you believe in them and they in you, nothing can stop you. Do you know the game? The boy shook his head. No, I don't think so. I'm not that good. Good answer. Those who think they know it aren't able to learn it properly, Yugi said with a smile, and then turned towards the crowd, his smile vaporizing. What are you all still waiting for? Don't you have places to be? Complaining and murmuring, the crowd scattered and eventually disappeared. Yugi chuckled lowly again. I've never liked all the attention. I used to be way too shy, and in addition to that, I couldn't speak English. Things are easier now, but I still don't like it. Tell me, how old are you? I'm 10, sir, the boy answered, and his parents exchanged worried glances. Yugi ignored them. Just call me Yugi. So what's your name? Yugi asked and smiled. Yugi, Atem said almost reproachfully when he saw the idea forming in Yugi's head. Do you need them? Well, actually no, not really. I don't think so, Atem said, but Yugi could tell he wasn't pleased. I'm cold, the boy said and blushed. Then I have something for you, Yugi said and conjured something from his pocket. It was wrapped in a white cloth, and without removing it, Yugi gave it to Cole. Open it when you're home. It's yours and yours alone. Create something out of it that is more adapted to you. I'm not going to need it anymore anyway. Cole didn't take it. Mom always says I'm not allowed to accept things from strangers. Yugi laughed at that. She's definitely right. You really shouldn't. Then I'll give it to your mom, and when she has decided that it's safe and I'm far away, she can give it to you. Just take it, Missy, Cole's father said when his wife hesitated. I'll catch up with you too soon. Go ahead. Rebecca sighed, but waited. Cole's father heard her and turned around. It'll only take a minute. Then he turned back to Yugi. I'm Bud Clancy, and I have an older son. He's 19 now. Ever since the Duelist Kingdom, he's admired you. He used to force me to watch with him, so I recognized you. I normally would have been more cautious towards someone looking like you. No offense, he added quickly. Don't take him, Yugi said. I'm used to it. Bud blushed in the same exact way his son did. I'm sorry, but I saw you with Leon on the shoulder, and I couldn't help but notice how good you were with that kid. But even he... How come this game only appeals to troubled people? Yugi smiled at that, a sad smile. It doesn't only appeal to troubled people, but it tends to be the troubled who learn to understand it best because they need the support. I've said it before, there is life in the game, and that life is a sort of support for people who have no one else. They turn to the cards, and more important, the souls in it, for company and faith. It's not harmful, but it's not the most ideal way to live. Is Cole troubled? Bud nodded slowly. Yes, weird things happen around him all the time. My wife and I are extremely worried about him, and things happen so often that other children notice it too. They bully him. What kind of things? Yugi asked, curious and genuinely concerned. Things disappear, change shape, switch location. I would almost believe he's able to use telekinesis, but I don't believe in that stuff. The man gave a sigh, and first now Yugi noticed how worn out he looked. Why not? Yugi asked, and Rebecca bit back the first genuine laugh since the bad news behind the man's back. Bud shrugged. Those kinds of things aren't possible. Aren't supposed to be possible. Yugi frowned, troubled now. I'd have a more open mind towards things like that if I were you. That attitude could become harmful for him if it turns out that you were wrong. You sound like a teacher. That's not what I expected from you at all. It's not the appearance you give, Bud said, ashamed while avoiding Yugi's statement. He knew that the other was right, but he just couldn't believe. That's what my students thought too. But the fact is, I am a teacher nowadays, Yugi confessed. You see, that's a great secret. I'd like it if you keep it to yourself. But I teach students to see discrimination, separation, and foolish prejudice, and how to do something about it. Bud stared at him. Really? Well, yeah, why not? I don't know, it's just not what I expected from someone like you, Bud said, feeling more and more cornered. Someone like me? Then who am I? How is someone like me like? Yugi asked, knowing he had turned the man's words against him. I'd say ignorant. Treating life as if it's a game. As if there is no future to worry about. Irresponsible and arrogant, he said, blushing. Remember what I said about being more open-minded. It could simplify things, Yugi said, and shook his head. Now I have to attend a funeral. Not deeming the man worthy of another gaze, Yugi passed him by and joined Rebecca. Together they continued their walk towards the airport. Now we really have to get out of this place. Within 24 hours, every duelist in the world will know that you've been spotted on the London streets. Probably with evidence and all. Rebecca complained. You're just so easy to recognize. How did you manage to stay unseen for 4 years? 4 years ago, I didn't really make use of the London main streets, or any main street at all, Yugi said and gave a harsh laugh. I don't think I like this. I believe our greatest problem will be Pegasus. He'll go great lengths to find us. To find you, Rebecca said with a sigh. Let's leave this country before we have all the duelists of Britain after us. What did you give that kid anyway? You know that, Rebecca, don't you? Yugi said without looking at the taller blonde. Yes, but it just seems a bit strange, she said. It's my final farewell. A sign to prove that my days as duelist are over, Yugi explained. Atem wasn't altogether pleased, but he didn't object. He wouldn't do that, you know that, Rebecca said. It just remains strange, and perhaps a bad decision, but I do think I can understand your reasoning. Yugi just nodded, and in silence they continued their journey. It wasn't until they reached the airport that one of them spoke. Rebecca, yesterday evening you said that it probably was Raphael who took care of everything. Is that accurate, or were you talking in your sleep? Yugi wondered. I don't remember saying it, but it is accurate. Raphael had come to apologize only a couple weeks after the accident, Rebecca said and started to tell. He and Grandpa sat and talked for a very long time. Raphael filled Grandpa in on everything he wanted to know about Atlantis under the condition it would remain a secret, and Grandpa told him about what happened down in the tomb, at least for as far as we knew. I don't know if Grandpa ever filled him in on what I wrote to him later, but anyway, after that exchange, they talked about the future. Grandpa wanted to know what Raphael would do from there. Raphael had no idea, and Grandpa offered him a job, but Raphael declined and said that he couldn't accept such kindness from someone he had done wrong, and that he'd try to make it on his own. Before that, he'd already been in France without being able to find a place where he wished to start over. Grandpa told him the offer would stand as long as it was necessary, and 3 years later, Raphael appeared on our driveway once again. He'd tried to start a new life all over the world, but he couldn't bring himself to be around all those people and having to lie about his past. But he knew very well that either they'd refuse to believe him or cut all ties to him if he told the truth. I believe Grandpa and I were sort of a relief to him. He didn't have to lie to us, since we both already knew what had happened, and he was reminded once again that there is true kindness in the world. It was surprisingly nice to have Raphael around. I was quite skeptical and not at all friendly to him in the beginning, but he understood and had patience with me. He lived with us in the same house, and he did all the work Grandpa and I couldn't do. He's really handy with whatever you give him, and he's patient. So unbelievably patient. He never says much, but neither did Grandpa, so the house remained pretty much the way it was. Only cleaner and more lamps worked simultaneously. His business skills proved priceless on several occasions, too, and he's very convincing. Something that has helped Grandpa more than he realized, I think. Raphael and Grandpa got along really great. Both of them got a new friend, something which Grandpa really needed, since his best friend passed away. I'm sorry, Yugi. Yugi nodded. It's okay. Continue, he said, fascinated, not doubting which Raphael she had meant in the least anymore. Raphael became part of the family in those months I was there. I put him through enough hardship, but it became better with time, when I understood that his motives were completely unselfish. Then I received a letter from Hogwarts, and there I went. I haven't seen either of them since. Rebecca finished and trailed off. Yugi knew that they were both thinking the same thing. One of them neither would ever see again. Does he know about Hogwarts? Yugi wondered. Clearly the ministry thinks he's part of the family, so yeah. Suddenly a woman in weird clothing stood on the doorstep. Raphael opened and she introduced herself as Minerva McGonagall. Rebecca said and grabbed Yugi's arm to pull him out of the way of a woman with 2 heavy bags who hadn't noticed him. There we can buy tickets. I assume you haven't thought about the fact that it's still quite expensive to fly to the US, have you? Yugi blushed when he realized that he indeed hadn't thought about the economical parts of this trip at all when he had told Dumbledore that he didn't want to travel by magical means. Luckily, I have, Rebecca said. I never really wanted to go to Hogwarts, and I made sure that I'd be able to get home as soon as I could, if in need of that. Though I hadn't expected to be under these circumstances. Yugi realized that Rebecca had put up a face, and in that same moment, he realized that he had done the exact same thing. They were both doing their best to make the other feel better, or simply to distract them from their inner pain. Rebecca bought 2 tickets to America, and somehow magically conjured her passport, and somehow his too. Yugi was now seriously mad at himself for his carelessness. What would he have done hadn't Rebecca been the gathered type? They boarded, their appearance and their lack of equipment calling on some attention, but Yugi explained the situation calmly to border security, and after the workers at the airport checked the story and got it confirmed, they were allowed to leave. Raphael would be meeting them that evening at the airport in Fresno, and Yugi wasn't looking forward to the meeting. Tell me more, Yugi asked after a while to distract himself. What happened when Minerva showed up on your doorstep? Rebecca looked at Yugi in astonishment, but as soon as she realized why he had asked the question, she told him, to distract herself as well as Yugi. Raphael was suspicious of her, especially when she said that she was looking for me. He demanded from her to know why she was there and refused to welcome her inside. When McGonagall told Raphael that I had been accepted into a school called Hogwarts, but that I never had been invited due to slow awakening, he became even more suspicious of her. I went to college at the time. The idea of me being accepted into a different school was simply ridiculous. Of course, Grandpa being the way he is, he stopped Raphael from slamming the door in her face, but really, you couldn't have blamed him if he had. She came with a nonsense story, dressed as if it was Halloween. I was slammed the door shut the moment I would have opened it. Grandpa invited her in, and McGonagall explained about what kind of school Hogwarts was. I think she was surprised by the fact that we reacted so calmly. She couldn't know that Grandpa and I, and especially Raphael, had a great deal of experience with magic. She proved herself, of course. Hadn't we demanded some proof, she would have become far too suspicious for all our guts. I didn't tell McGonagall that I didn't want to go. I might have dealt with it nicely, but I was far too surprised to decline. Later, I told Raphael and Grandpa that there was no chance in the world that I was going to go. Raphael sided with me and said that if I didn't want to get involved with magic, no one should force me to. But Grandpa reminded me of all the accidents that had occurred every now and then because I couldn't control myself, and said that it would be good for me to learn. So I went, and then you were there, and now we're sitting here on our way to yet another funeral of a beloved, while a war is threatening to break loose any time. Tears found their way down Rebecca's cheeks silently. I'm so tired of this. Me too, Yugi said, and hugged Rebecca. But as we can't change anything, let's face it together. The 3 of us. The 4 of us, Rebecca said. There isn't a chance that Raphael is going to let us leave again without him. Especially with the circumstances being as they are. Raphael, Yugi said. I've never truly met him, you know. He and Atem might have some things to sort out, though. It'll be interesting. Raphael doesn't talk about his time with Doma at all. Neither does he talk about everything that happened after they stole the god cards. He's a silent person. He ponders a lot. I think he feels guilty still. It might be good for him to talk to the Pharaoh, Rebecca said, and then went quiet, something quite unusual for her. Hours later, the plane landed, and Yugi had to wake Rebecca, who had fallen asleep halfway across the Atlantic, while Yugi had stared down at the sea, constantly thinking about the lost continent. Without trouble, they entered the country and were met at the airport by Raphael. He looked pretty much the way Yugi remembered him, tall, blonde, and muscular, but without the coat. Yugi withdrew. This was not a meeting that he should or even wanted to intercept, so Adam found himself staring out through solid eyes, slightly surprised. He started walking slower and came eventually to a halt, while Rebecca just continued straight on and gave Raphael a hug. His arms were so large that they almost hid Rebecca from view. It was amazing that he didn't cause her injury. Adam stood still and waited almost 20 meters away from them. yet careful not to lose sight of them in the crowded airport of Fresno. "Raphael, let me introduce a friend of mine," Rebecca said, and Atem moved closer. "His name is his name is Atem." Raphael frowned at the name, but as soon as he caught sight of the short, slim figure and red eyes of the person he had known as the nameless pharaoh, he understood. "We have met, Rebecca. You know that." Atem was surprised by how familiar Raphael's voice sounded, but then again, had a voice ever hurt him as much as Raphael's had? "I know you've met Atem, but you haven't met Yugi. Why did you switch?" she asked, sounding somewhat disappointed. "You retrieved your name," Raphael stated, ignoring Rebecca. Atem nodded, waiting for Raphael's reaction on him being there. The air surrounding them was tense, and people unconsciously avoided walking in between them, although that created a large gap in the crowd. It was up to Raphael if that tension would remain or fade away. "I heard what happened. You have my condolences," Raphael said, choosing what Yugi thought to be the best opportunity. Atem gave a weak and tired smile, though somehow kept his intimidating dignity.
"And you have mine,"
he said, his tone not unfriendly at all. From his soul's room, Yugi smiled sadly. There would be no storm, but the rain would fall the harder. Without a word, he and the spirit switched places so Yugi could meet the person that more than 4 years earlier had taken his soul.